everyone, welcome or welcome back to the Marketing Nomad YouTube channel. I am the Marketing Nomad. Alrighty, so let's talk about what I went through recently. So in December of 2025, I raised the prices of some of the services that I offer in my business, alright? And for about 3 months before that, I started to understand that it was time for me to raise my prices. How did I understand? Well, there was a lot of frustration that was building. It just wasn't computing in my mind, like the amount of work that I was now putting in. Like I had raised the amount of work that I was putting in, the delivery part of it, but I hadn't raised my prices, and I hadn't raised it for about 1.5 years. All right. And so I was starting to see that discrepancy, and you will kind of realize, especially when you are a business owner or entrepreneur, you will sort of realize that it is time for you to raise your prices. And so I think it was around July or August when I was like, okay, I think it's time to raise my prices. The moment that became a conscious thought, so there was a little bit of frustration, and then the moment the thought came through, like, oh, okay, well, the reason why you're so frustrated is because you haven't raised your prices in 1.5 years, first off, but that's not the only reason. The amount of output is not computing very well with the input that you are getting with respect to your prices. So it's time to raise, or it's time to add tiers to your system so that whatever output you're giving, you're feeling like, yes, this is the input for it. All right, so that became a conscious thought. This was, I think, in August, end of August, that I started having this conscious thought that, okay, it's time to raise my prices, or it's time to start introducing tiers to my services so that, at least when I am going about doing my work or going about doing the delivery, I'm not constantly worrying about the input and how it is short of what I am giving as the output. Because even if you want to talk about it in terms of energy, my energy, I want to show up full dedicated to the output, full dedicated to catering to my clients' needs, rather than constantly worrying that the input was not equal to the output, or the pricing was just not balanced to the output that I was giving. So even on my end, I realized that this was something that I needed to fix in my business. All right, so that was okay. But the moment it became a conscious thought, oh my gosh, there were so many insecurities that just came up to the surface for me. It was crazy. It was absolutely crazy how many of my limiting beliefs, how many of my insecurities just rose to the surface. And very early on, I was lucky to understand this about my business, that my business is a mirror. It is an absolute mirror to who I am. Every bit of the good, my perceived flaws, my limiting beliefs, my insecurities, it is always going to be constantly reflected back to me. All right, and if I don't work through it, it will be seen in my business. So very early on, I understood this, and the moment this became a conscious thought for me that, okay, it's time for you to raise your prices, like, it's time, you've pushed this for way too long. Oh my gosh, so many insecurities came up to the surface. There was one particular moment in my business, this was about 4 years ago, where I had raised my prices, but and then I didn't get any clients for a long time after that. And so that I kind of went through like a traumatic period. All right, maybe traumatic period is a little bit too extreme, but it was quite intense for me to go through that phase where I didn't have clients for a while and I had just raised the prices. And so in my mind, I had kind of equated not getting clients to raising my prices, when there could have been other reasons for me to actually not have clients. Maybe it was just not the right season. It was an off season, and it was. All right, so there were a lot of things that I had equated to raising my prices. Like, okay, well, am I truly deserving of raising my prices? Is this really, like, my perception is that my output has to equal the input, right? So what if it's wrong? What if my perception's wrong? And so all of these thoughts like kind of came up to the surface, and it was so much that I realized, okay, well, before I raise my prices, and it's an action that I can take, absolutely. All I have to do is, jot down the tiers that I want to do, maybe go strategize it, do all of my all my MBA stuff, like put that all in, yes, I can do that. However, there's a lot about my mindset that's not ready for that change, and I need to first work through that. And that's where I believe thinking about your business as a mirror really helps you, because before you can start taking action, like in terms of like strategy or organizational management or even back end, understanding that your business is a mirror, that no matter what you do on the outside, if the internal part, you, the mirror, whatever is being reflected, has not been worked on, or there isn't alignment to that, whatever you do externally, it will not sustain, it will crumble, or there will be something misaligned that it will cause even more problems. All right, so I realized that, okay, you know what, I can actually just open up my website, change everything, do whatever I need to, add those tiers. That's the, I guess, relatively easy part. but I wasn't ready for that because of all of these insecurities and like all of these limiting beliefs that had come up to the surface. So I said, okay, you know what, we're gonna pause, right? We're gonna pause. My business is a mirror, so it is reflecting right now where I am at. Where I am at is that I do have certain insecurities about raising my prices. I do have certain narratives that are not working for me with respect to my prices, and I need to work on them right now first. So this was about end of August that I realized that, okay, my own thought processes are kind of coming up to the surface. Maybe I didn't need, like for 1.5 years, I hadn't raised my prices, right? So all of these thoughts, they never really come up to the surface, or I hadn't even given them a chance to. They didn't need to as well. But now that it was the occasion, like I wanted to raise my prices and it was time, they were all kind of coming up to the surface. So which meant that it was time for me to tackle these things. So I started working on my mindset with respect to my prices. So from August end, I would say September, it took me some time of like very absolute disorientation, like, okay, what do I do kind of thing. So I would say September, first week, I started working on it. Yes, simultaneously I was kind of deciphering the structure, the tiers, seeing what I was comfortable with, but at the same time I was also working on myself with respect to my mindset. Like, okay, well, why are we so scared, you know, that we are not going to have a single client booking if we raise our prices? And then I went back to the time that I told you, right, the episode that I went through where I did raise my prices and then there weren't any clients for a couple of months, and I was really upset. I was so sad about it. Like I was very dejected. And then I asked myself, well, was it off season? Because you do have seasons in your business. So was it off season for you? And I was like, yes. The answer came to me 4 years on, okay? 4 years on, I'm like, oh yeah, that was probably the reason. It was off season. And then we did get clients when once it was on season at the new price that we had put our pricing. So I was like, okay, well, so that's a narrative that's been working against you. It wasn't true, so let's correct that thought process. Let's work on that. All right, so I started working on each of my insecurities, each of my limiting beliefs with respect to, okay, well, do I charge what I deserve? And is it okay? What are people's perceptions going to be? What are my clients going to think about it? I mean, they've been with me for about 1.5 years now. Some of them, like right since I put the original pricing, what are they going to think? And then I slowly started to, you know, understand my thought process that, hey, you know, people, like, you've been giving like consistent service, and so they will understand. And that reorientation took some time for me. It really did take some time to me, but I feel like when I raised my prices in December, I was ready for it. Like, I was so ready for it because I had taken the time to actually work through my thoughts, my limiting beliefs, my own insecurities with respect to my prices. Yes, there were certain fears. I will be completely honest with you. I was still a little bit afraid, but I had worked through most of those fears. I'd worked through most of those insecurities, and even as I was working through my tiers, I was making sure that I was comfortable with the tiers. So I would have one where it wasn't the old pricing, but it was somewhere in between. I had a tier that was in between, and I had a tier that was that could give my clients the flexibility. So it wasn't a direct jump. I would give them the flexibility to shift and to rearrange their own expectations around the pricing as well. So that also helped me in a lot of ways. But I really like the concept that your business is a mirror. And of course, it can get very brutal at times because you have all of these things that are shown to you consistently 24/7, and there is a level of self-awareness that needs to be there when you are running a business. I mean, it just comes to you, like you will be forced to have that level of self-awareness. You will be forced to constantly keep identifying things that are misaligned within you that's being reflected by your business. But the more you can understand this, the more you can accept it, the more you can align with it, take that as my business is working hand in hand with me, rather than my business is showing me all of the things that I don't want to see and it's working against me. I feel like that can be a thought process, like you can kind of get into that thought process, but the way that I look at it is, okay, you're showing me these things so that I can work on it, and I'm grateful for you. I'm grateful for the fact that my business is a mirror and I get to work on all of this. I get to give myself the space and the time to work through it, so that when I implement the strategies, when I implement whatever, like the tiers that I had to do, the updating of my website, so on and so forth, when I do that, I am in alignment. So which means whatever is working in my business is also in alignment. Yes, there are certain things that I can't control, like external circumstances, so on and so forth, but what I can control is myself. And as a result of that, there is a certain degree that I can control in my business as well. And I feel like I love that about my business. I feel like I love that about the thought process that I have with respect to my business being a mirror. And I take that in my stride rather than using that against me. All right, so I wanted to share this because this was a very recent one. And then let me give you like a tiny update of what happened after I raised my prices. So it just flowed, like everything just flowed. I gave my clients like a heads up, and I gave them like, okay, if you want to book your services between now and I said 1st of December, you can absolutely do so. It will be old pricing, but 1st of December. And then I wrote up this very long email about what are the changes that I have made with respect to the pricing, because before it was just one service, and then now I was like tiering it up, like TIERING, that's a word, but like tiering it up. And so I kind of explained all of that. Like I was ready for all of that. Like I'd given myself enough time. Like I'd be like, one of my like insecurities was like, well, my clients don't understand the tiers. And then I was like, then explain it to them. Break it down in a way that they will understand. So then I took time to kind of work through my insecurities. So I'm really glad that I gave myself that time. And when I implemented the change, it was such a smooth transition. It was such a beautiful transition. I absolutely enjoyed that process because I gave myself that time to understand that my business is a mirror. So before I do anything physical, like working on it, I have to work on myself first. I have to maybe correct certain thought processes. I have to align first before I start taking action towards my business. And so just having that thought process, like if something's going wrong with my business, I first check in with myself. It's like, what is it mirroring about you? Is there something that needs to be aligned within you first, because your business is a mirror. So instead of blaming the business or having that resentment towards your business, because sometimes that can happen, right? After all, it is a relationship at the end of the day. That can happen. So the moment you start thinking that if something's going wrong with the business, what is it showing about me that is misaligned, that I need to maybe correct my thought process, maybe a limiting belief that's being shown to me right now, or there's something misaligned in my own actions because of maybe negative past experiences, and that's kind of hindering where I am at right now. So having this thought process, having this narrative in my mind, I can't even begin to tell you, like every time something goes off with my business, which is like every now and then, as you know, as a solopreneur or a business owner, you will know that there is oftentimes, quite a lot of misalignment. Even when you're growing, there is misalignment because what has been working up until now doesn't work anymore, so on and so forth. So there's that constant growth that needs to happen, that constant alignment that needs to happen. So thinking about it that way has saved me a lot of frustration. It saved me a lot of confusion. It saved me a lot of maybe feeling dejected as well. Like, okay, if there's something wrong there, it means there's something misaligned in how I'm showing up. Let's align. So I'm kind of in that thought process. I always take it that my business is my mirror. and I align accordingly as well. So I wanted to share that with you because this is like a very recent example, and I also want to share more about like behind the scenes of what happens with my business. I want to kind of share the lessons that I'm learning along the way, or if lessons that I've learned in the past, how is it helping me at this point in time. I kind of want to share that. So I'll be doing that going forward, moving forward, and with these relatively short videos. And so yeah, I really hope that you are doing well. If not, I hope that things do get better. And yeah, I just wanted to share this with you, and I'll catch you in my next one. Bye bye.